Explosions in Iran have been reported by Iranian state media after Iran targeted not one, but two UAE tankers in the Strait of Hormuz as U.S. regional allies as the conflict between the U.S. and Iran continues to escalate. U.S. Central Command says it will restart its naval blockade starting at 4 p.m. today. Joining us to discuss this and so much more is our guy, Mr. Harley Lippman, foreign policy expert, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Harley, it is always good to see you, sir. Welcome back to the show.
Pleasure to see you as well.
Harley, let's jump right into this. And first, full disclosure, you recently paid a visit to Israel, and I want to talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to focus yet again on the UAE. You heard in my introduction that obviously they are now continuing to be a part of this conflict, this ongoing conflict. And so I have to pose the question to you, Harley, what's the value of the relationships we have with, let's say, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, given the crisis we have with the Strait of Hormuz?
Manyfold. They've actually proven to be invaluable allies. One is they've kept stable the world's oil market by increasing production as the Strait of Hormuz was closed effectively by Iran. So that's one area. The second is they've protected American lives with their military. They have an excellent relationship with CENTCOM. And through innovation, they're coming up with alternatives to the Strait of Hormuz, which would be really important for the United States and for the world. They're coming up with new pipelines that will avoid the Strait of Hormuz. The UAE is building a new port to be able to avoid also the Strait. And so on every level I could think of, as well as they're continuing their investments in the United States. They're not pulling back, even though they've been subject to military attacks by Iran, and they've suffered heavily. They are continuing their financial investments in the United States, which is will total to be a serious, significant number between both of them. It could come close to $1 trillion. And that keeps jobs and helps keeps inflation low.
Yeah, obviously something that's top of mind, not only within that region, but I would argue for Americans as well. You heard me make mention of you, sir, recently paying a visit to Israel. And when I think about that, I think so many folks also think about a security strategy, which we know that Israel has, well, done a very good job of creating just that. Do tell, sir.
Right. So I see you have the picture. That's the Minister of Defense in Israel, Minister Katz. So indeed, I met with him. I met with the Chief of Staff of the IDF and other leaders in the Israeli government. And basically, their message is, if I were to convey them, is one, they're very grateful for American support. They feel they're a loyal and reliable ally of the United States and the American people. And they want us to be mindful that they need a buffer in Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. Also, they're worried about Turkey. They feel that Turkey will create instability in the Middle East if they're sold F-35 planes, because it will reduce Israel's qualitative edge, which was agreed to by the United States, a 10-year commitment to keep Israel's military qualitatively better than any other nation in the region, and Turkey would diminish that. And Turkey has imperialist designs on the Middle East, including Lebanon, Syria, and other nations. So they're not a reliable and responsible partner for the United States, and we should be aware that Erdogan supports the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. And I'll stop there.
We also know that President Trump, in essence, says he will probably soon, yet again, order a strike on Pickaxe Mountain, the nuclear site, obviously within Iran. Your thoughts on that, Harley?
Yes, I think that that's very important, and that has been overlooked as we have focused on keeping open the Strait of Hormuz, which is essential. We may have forgotten to some extent the main reason for the war, which I would argue would be to make sure they don't get a nuclear weapon. And this is what President Trump and the administration has been saying. But yet we have reliable satellite information that shows that there's a renewed activity at Pickaxe Mountain, which means they're reconstituting their nuclear program.
Hmm.
And that should be very alarming to the United States and to the world, because Iran is a country, as President Trump said, that if they get nuclear weapons, they're very likely to use them. And that would create a catastrophe the world has never known before.
Harley, I wonder if we can to take a live look at the White House. And while we do so, we know that President Trump, yet again, meeting with the Iraqi Prime Minister. The topic of discussion, it's specifically very curious and very interesting because of what's going on within that part of the world. What needs to happen in order for that meeting to be deemed successful?
That the Iraqi government reels in the Shia militias, because there are groups of armed terrorist soldiers that are loyal to Iran. They're not loyal to Iraq. They're violating Iraq's sovereignty, and they threaten the region. They create instability and threaten war. Iraqi Shia militias fired rockets into fellow Arab nations, also into Israel, and they're a danger in the region. Everybody focuses on Hamas, Iran, the Houthis, but right after that would be the Shia militias in Iraq, and the Iraqi government is taking steps to do that. And that would be an extremely productive step to keeping peace and stability in the region.
We'll wrap up with yet again the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump stating yesterday that a toll would be imposed, I believe 20%, if my memory serves me correct, that America would gather that in order to really provide security for all of the cargo ships that would venture into the Strait of Hormuz. But yet again, Harley, a number of his critics crying foul, stating that those happen to be international waters. And, well, if you look at the international law, that's forbidden. What say you?
Well, here's one way to look at it. Let's say you own a candy store and the mafia comes and says, give me 20% of your profits. That's what Iran is doing. Because if you don't, we're going to destroy the store. But the way to look at the United States toll of 20% is to think of the candy store hiring security guards to protect them from the mafia. That's really how you should more look at the United States approach with 20%, because only the United States could keep the Strait of Hormuz open. It's extremely expensive. And why should the American taxpayer bear the entire burden of it when this is critical for Asian markets and world markets? The Strait of Hormuz is the most important choke point in the world. And by having it closed by Iran creates tremendous hardship, particularly for African nations that depend on fertilizer that you can only get through the Strait of Hormuz. So the United States is playing a very important and constructive role in keeping the world economy strong and keeping inflation down. And that's the goal of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open for.
Yet again, foreign policy expert, Mr. Harley Lippman, joining us right here on the Live Zone. Harley, we always appreciate your expertise.
Thank you.